What up, pilots? Okay, I just got back from my local and I got third place. I definitely misplayed a game that could have probably netted me a win, but knew on the deck, knew on some of the interactions, and I had to make this profile right now, like tonight. There were so many crazy interactions and game states that I wish half of this could have been recorded. It would have been amazing footage, but I think I cracked the code. I'm gonna get right into it. So let's start off with blue, white, the O. We all kind of knew that this was going to end up probably being the main combination, but man, I expected results, but not like what I got tonight at all. Let's start off with our blocker package. You already know Alfred, best boy in the game, and then you gotta put his buddy Rick Diaz. These early units count a lot to stay alive in the aggro matchup and also can supplement as bodies to block to keep the O and some other cards alive long enough to see repair really come through and keep those sticky bodies on the board. So there's absolutely no time in the game that these cards are bad to see in this deck. Seeing them late, seeing them early, it doesn't matter. They're just necessary at this point until we get better blockers to power creep. I also went with 13 low units and 13 high units just to get an even playing field of good adaptable cards to play early in the game once again and also late in the game. So for that moment, we're going with Grandpa and Launcher Strike. Launcher Strike is a awesome body, period, and then paired with Kira is a early game unstoppable force that needs to be answered with a sufficient one. And Grandpa is Grandpa. Not only that, but now this time with him having repair, he really lends himself to the O at being able to rest opposing level 4 or lower. So I had this card at 4 at one point, but I needed to balance the deck out a little bit. And in the all blue variant, I still do think that 4 Grandpa is necessary. However, since we wanted to switch it up a little bit with the white package, we had to go even for Armoro and, of course, Kira's in the deck because Kira has some pretty broken interactions in this deck. But that's the end of our semi-low units. And, of course, going into our high package, we got Airstrike. This card just provides so much control. You know him, you hate him, or you love him by now. But this card is just absolutely necessary in anything that runs Kira or White, period. The control tool that you get off of this by not only being able to remove something from the board to make other things easy to attack, but also just being a big blocker when paired. And it doesn't even matter what you pair with it. It ends up being a 6/5 most of the time. And that's pretty beefy for a blocker at level 5 as well. Can be mid game push or late game push. No matter what, this card is just good. So I always have to find myself to run 4 of it. Now we're going to get into the bigger units. So for starters, we're only running 2 Masala. Now I know most people are on 3 Masala, and that is a okay number. However, I didn't want to run an oversaturation of big cards in the deck, and this fits exactly where it needs to be as an alternative unit for Palpatine to jump into, but also to just be an additional big boy blocker, and especially with 5 attack. Even Grandpa can't trade evenly into this card. A lot of people can't trade evenly into this card. Even Kshatriya and all those bigger units, they can ping it all they want to, but if they don't kill it and they swing, then it'll just automatically die to this. And it helps enable the big boy, the big O. But that's what we went with for this. And then the other card we want to see either with the O or before the O are 3 freedom. Now, the reason why I went with 3 freedom is because when we don't see the O, this is a very good stall card. Most people know that if you can't out the freedom, then it basically buys you a whole nother turn. But on top of that, it has a very good interaction with the O. So let's go ahead and get into it. You know it's a 4 of in the deck. Now, normally of big bodies like this, I would be afraid to run 4 of this card, but it's actually the opposite. It's so close to being Wing Zero that it's scary. Not only because they recognize each other. So if you have 2 O's on the board and then you pair one of them, then the other one can swing and rest anything that's level 7 or lower. And with this being the focus of being able to rest level 7 or lower, that's another reason why we went with the 3 freedom, because an interaction that I found myself doing all through the night was playing freedom to sustain and block, and then playing the O with Palpatine, giving this repair to being able to swing into something, live because of the fat booty, rest an opposing freedom, right? So you've rested 2, you're going to end up resting that, right? And then you can swing into an opposing freedom with this as well. Also, if you have Kira paired with the O, you can get rid of cards like Wing Zero. If they swing with the Wing Zero, right, you can't rest the Wing Zero because it's 8, but if they swing with the Ring Zero and you pair Kira with the O, you can cleanly trade into the stat line -2, take 3, and then at the end of the turn it'll heal 3, so it'll be like the O never took damage. So although we may not be able to rest this, and I have seen people running the level 8 new unicorn, and that is cute, but once again, we don't want too much of that top end and have our early hands brick, because we have a bunch of units that we can't play until we're pretty much almost dead. So we don't play that card, even though I do think it's a novelty. But this, the O and Kira being able to trade into this and not take any damage, definitely is a scenario that's going to come up, and come up a lot in this, because the O is just such a heavily looked upon deck. All we need to do is crack the code, and I think if this isn't the list that pops up in Vegas, quote me now, it's going to be very, very close to this, because this interaction turns this card and the meta on its head. Because if everyone's afraid of this and we can beat most things and then play into this matchup, I think it's actually a good to even matchup coming this format. But I thought that was something interesting to point out to people who hadn't done the math on that, and that's another reason why we wanted to be in white, because it also came up a couple times tonight where we don't even pair the O with Palpatine. We pair him with Kira to be able to rest, and then probably rest 2 or 3 things because of that. Or we pair it with Kira. Oh, I'm sorry, I said Kira twice. The Armoro. You can pair this with Armoro, rest something, and then have one of your units with repair attack, rest something else, and then you can easily clean up the board. Or you can do the Kira play. Palpatine is nice, and sometimes you can target your Masala to draw a card, but most of the time I found myself tonight pairing Palpatine while I had freedom on the board, and then being able to rest something level 7 or lower, giving one of your fattest bodies, right, the opportunity to heal at the end of the turn and return to being one of the fattest bodies, and paired with Kira anywhere in this mix, and the advantage is completely insane. That's it for the units. I think I've picked about as good as it's going to get. For our bases, this is where I'm getting a couple mixed things right now. Definitely subject to change, but tonight they worked well. Origama being breach proof is going to be even more relevant as we go into GD03, because of Ultron Gundam and Shenlong and Chang being there and green being a thing, I felt like Aragama is just a staple as long as you run white. This could end up being an Archangel because of aforementioned reasons. We're running 3 freedom, so being able to swing with freedom and restand it is always a powerful tool. And then, just being able to swing, rest something, pop, and then restand it, and then keep going with the O is invaluable. And then Narahama, I feel like this card also helps in rushdown matchups because you can start to rest weenies and try and stave off aggression early. And a lot of our units have 4 health or higher. In fact, the only unit in the deck that doesn't have 4 health is Rick Diaz. So we can find ourselves using this to our advantage or defensively, right? Staving off an attack or going on the aggression. So with both of these bases, I'd love to play a 5th like a Kusanagi. But for right now, these bases are doing exactly what they need to be doing. And not lastly, we got our commands. We got our white-blue pyramid. I ran the same pyramid in Epion, and it didn't fail me. And this sure did not fail me tonight either. Yes, 4 overflowing, 3 show, 2 striker pack, and then the unforeseen. And I actually had the unforeseen come up pretty well today. Someone summoned Grandpa and tried to trade into my O while it was damaged. It didn't get to repair all the damage off, and it was low enough to kill with Grandpa. However, I unforeseen, took 3, it survived, and then we just repaired the 3 next turn because he had no more units. So it was pretty much GG after that. That's my standard package for that. I don't think I'll shake that off. If there are cards that I think are perfect in the deck, the way that they are, I think we pretty much got the units down correctly and our commands. And this is going to be controversial, but I have a reason for it. So 1, we run the best pilot / magic card in the game for Armoro. And we see our Armoro a lot, even though we only run 3 Grandpa. We see it because we draw a whole bunch. So there is no reason to not see this at least, once or twice. So just place them where you need to be, and this card is always on time. But you guys should know that by now. I wouldn't be surprised if this card gets limited if we ever have a ban list to 1. It's so powerful. Kira. Pairing Kira with any of our aforementioned Gundams just works. Y'all all know this card as well. It just works. You just set it and forget it. And the most controversial thing you'll see in the deck list. I believe this pilot is good where it needs to be, but I don't believe it needs to be everywhere. And that's going to be our 3 Palpatine. We have more than enough units and targets for this to go into. We don't really want it to go into the Masala. If we have to, then we have to. Especially if it's like for game or something like that, then you got to do what you got to do. But we really want to just be seeing this inside of our big O. And normally people would max the pilot out to max out and go with the units. But as we said earlier, right, you don't necessarily need him inside the O. In fact, these pilots do almost better as the main pilot for the O. I only really feel like you need to hold on to that combo when you need to immediately enter the board. However, if your opponent's playing a lot of blockers, like I played a blue-white Epion matchup tonight, and my opponent flooded the board with the same blockers I had. Launcher Strike, Striker Pack Token, Ilfrith, Rick Diaz, and a Freedom, right? Both of our boards had max 6. And all it took was for me to swing with the 2/4 Striker Pack token and then summon the O and then give Freedom what it needed. And then I cleared the board and then control the game from the rest of there. So you only need this card when you need to crack back. But other than that, our other pilots in the O will not only suffice but also be situationally better when we call for it. Because like I said, this inside the O, being able to rest 2 things during the turn appropriately if you can swing it, Like if the O's been on the board for a while, you just summon this, and then just go to town, king, clear the board, and that's what the deck's good at. Once it makes it to the upper end of the game, which we should through control tools anyway, as we aforementioned, you should make it there, and once you do, your opponent shouldn't have a board, which also means they shouldn't have a hand. The games were very good. I wouldn't be surprised if this list, like I said, ends up being the top list over at Bandai Fest for Vegas. But I can tell you right now, the O is scary, and if you let it stay, which most of the time you don't have a choice on whether or not it is going to, but once it stays, the game is over. You never get to keep another monster on the board. And there's, oh my God, if you put 2 on the board, the game is a wrap. The game is a wrap. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to try and make some changes to the deck, but for right now, I don't see a whole bunch. So if you have some suggestions, please feel free to comment them below. And no, I'm not going to 4 on this pilot. I don't care. Not going to 4 on this pilot. It's good stats, but the effect, it might as well be a vanilla beat stick because it's only one linked. And since we can put anybody in the O, it doesn't even have to be him. This card's never going to 4. With that being said, peace.